They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but out here in the Oregon pines, I learned it's actually paved with something much wetter. Something that shimmers like liquid silver and smells like a grave that's been struck by lightning. Most people think a hero is someone who helps a stranger in the dark. But what if your kindness is actually a weakness? What if, by opening your door to something that was suffering, you just invited the end of the world to sit on your sofa and watch you sleep?
I used to be a man of simple rules. I believed in things you could kick with your boot or hold in your hand.
But after those 3 days in September, I realized the universe isn't a vast empty space. It's a mirror. And right now, it's looking at you. And it's hungry. I was a man of the dirt. I lived by the logic of the chainsaw and the cold beer at sunset. My religion was the tangible. If I couldn't see it or explain it away with a shrug, it didn't exist. That was the lie I told myself, until a Tuesday night in early September, deep in the rotting woods behind my home in Oregon. The air that night was sour. It felt heavy, like a basement that hadn't been opened in 100 years. As I walked the trail, the forest didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a hungry mouth waiting for me to trip. That's when I saw the glow. It wasn't the bright, friendly light of a flashlight. It was a sick, pale pulse coming from the hollow of an old cedar tree. I thought it was an injured animal, maybe a deer hit by a truck or a coyote caught in a trap. But as I knelt down, the air began to taste like copper, like I was sucking on a penny. There, huddled in the wet ferns, was a shape that made my brain itch. It was shivering, an oily, silver nightmare that shouldn't have been breathing. It wasn't a movie monster with slime and teeth. It was worse. It looked like a secret that had been buried alive and finally crawled back up to the surface. When I touched it, my skin didn't just crawl. It tried to leave my body. Its skin was liquid metal, cold and hot at the same time. It looked at me with eyes that weren't eyes. They were pits of black glass that reflected every sin I'd ever committed. Then, a voice that sounded like a razor blade sliding across a silk sheet cut into my skull. Hide. I don't remember the walk back. My memory is just a blur of heavy breathing and the feeling of something unnaturally light in my arms. It felt like carrying a bag of dry bones, yet it vibrated with a power that made my teeth ache. I laid the thing on my couch. In the dim light of my living room, the horror was even clearer. It was bleeding, but there was no red. A thick, glowing fluid leaked onto my cushions, pulsing like a slow, dying neon sign. It smelled like ozone and old meat. I wrapped it in a wool blanket, the same blanket my mother gave me. I realize now how much that probably amused him. I tried to clean the wounds, but every time I touched that silver skin, I felt a jolt of dark psychology, a memory of a time I lied, a time I'd been cruel, a time I'd turned my back on someone. This thing wasn't just hurt, it was feeding on my guilt. I must have fallen asleep in my armchair, because I woke up to a sound like spiders dancing on a drum. The creature, he called himself Saren, was sitting up. His wounds had fused together with terrifying speed. "You helped me," he said. His voice didn't come from his throat. It vibrated in the marrow of my bones. "Humans are fascinating. You only help when you are afraid of your own insignificance. Why did you bring the predator into your nest?" "You looked lost," I whispered. My voice sounded small, like a child's. He smiled, and it was the most horrific thing I'd ever seen. It wasn't a smile of thanks. It was the smile of a scientist looking at a particularly stupid rat. "Then you are still one of the few potential survivors." On the second night, the world outside changed. The forest went dead, silent, no crickets, no owls, just the heavy, rhythmic thrum of engines. Black trucks with no lights were crawling up the dirt road. Saren stood by the window, his silhouette long and jagged against the glass. "They are coming with their scalpels and their cages," he hissed. "They want to measure the stars with their tiny rulers. But they won't find me as long as your heart chooses to protect the lie." I locked every door. I barricaded the windows. I sat there in the dark with a shotgun on my lap, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. For 3 hours, the military searched the woods. I could see their flashlights cutting through the trees like needles, but they never saw the cabin. It was as if Saren had folded the house into a pocket of nowhere. That night, Saren told me about the mirror. He said his people weren't aliens from a distant planet. They were the original owners. They had been watching us since we were painting stick figures on cave walls. "We don't invade with ships and bombs," he sneered. "Why bother? You do the work for us. You build walls around your souls. You hate the person who looks different. You kill the stranger. We don't need to conquer you. We just wait for you to finish the job. He explained that the universe echoes every act of cruelty. When a war starts on Earth, the stars dim. When a child screams in hunger, the vacuum of space feels the vibration. Humanity does not lack intelligence, he said, leaning in so close I could smell the static electricity on his breath. It lacks reflection. You look in the mirror and see a hero. We look at you and see a virus that thinks it's a god. By the third day, the pressure in the cabin was unbearable. My nose started to bleed. The air felt like it was being sucked out of the room by a giant vacuum. Saren told me it was time. We walked back into the woods. The trees where I'd found him were now glowing with a sick, radioactive blue. The leaves were turning to ash, falling like gray snow. The air began to vibrate with a sound so low I felt it in my bowels. It was the sound of 1,000 hive minds humming in unison. A pale light descended from the clouds, not a spaceship, but a hole in the sky. It looked like mist made of ground-up stars. Saren turned to me one last time. He raised a silver hand and pressed a single finger against my chest. It didn't hurt. It felt like a pulse of pure liquid heat, a warmth that wasn't mine. You saw me not as a threat, but as a life, he said. That choice ripples. It changes the frequency of this little mud ball you call home. When the day comes that your world sees beyond its own fear, we will return openly. Until then, remember, you are being watched. Not by eyes, but by the very hearts you try so hard to hide. Then, with a sound like a single glass bell shattering, he was gone. No blast mark, no footprints, just a circle of dead, white grass that smelled like ozone. The next morning, the real world tried to fix itself. The local news reported a meteor debris event. The military moved in, searched, and found nothing. But I know better. It's been 6 months. I still live in that cabin, but I don't drink beer or watch the sunset anymore. I spend my time at the local shelter, but I'm not doing it because I'm a good person. I'm doing it because I can feel that pulse in my chest. Every time I'm kind to someone, the symbol on the cedar tree out back glows a little brighter. And every time I feel a flash of anger or hate, the woods grow a little darker. The real invasion didn't start with fire in the sky or ships over our cities. It didn't happen with a bang. It happened with a whimper, the sound of me turning the deadbolt and letting a nightmare sit by my fire. The moment I carried that silver, shivering thing across my threshold, I didn't just save a life. I opened a vein in the world. Every night since Saren left, I've felt a cold, oily weight behind my ribs. It's like a parasite made of moonlight. I look at my neighbors now, and I don't see friends. I see meat with opinions. I see potential for something terrible. The symbol on the tree is bleeding now, not sap liquid light. It's spreading. The roots of that cedar are turning silver, reaching out under the ground, connecting to other trees, other yards, other homes. They are building a web, and we are the flies. We thought we were the masters of this world. We thought we were the ones doing the observing. But you don't notice the spider until you're already wrapped in the silk. And the silk is made of our own empathy. Yesterday, I saw a child crying in the park. Normally, I would have helped, but I saw the way the shadows behind the slide lengthened. I saw the way the air shimmered the same silver oil I saw in the woods. I realized the test never ends. They are everywhere. They are the injured bird on your porch. They are the lost traveler at your gate. They don't want our land. They don't want our water. Those are human needs, born of tiny, hungry bellies. These things are older than hunger. They want something much more intimate. They want to see what happens when the mask of civilization slips. They want to watch us when the lights go out, when the grocery stores are empty, and when we are left alone with nothing but our own black hearts. Think about the last time you felt a spike of pure, ugly hate. That wasn't just a feeling. It was a signal. It was a dinner bell. Are you really sure you're as good as you think you are? Or is your kindness just a costume you wear because you're afraid of being judged? They are watching you right now, leaning out from the shadows of your own hallway, very, very hungry for your answer. They are weighing your soul, and they are hoping you're just as rotten as the rest of us. If you ever see a light in the woods that doesn't belong, a soft, pulsing glow that makes you feel pity, don't be a hero. Run, don't look back, because if you help it, if you show it that humans are soft enough to care, you aren't being a saint. You're just signing the death warrant for every man, woman, and child on this planet. Did this story give you the chills? If you believe we aren't alone, comment "the mirror" down below. Like this video if you'd open your door to a stranger, and subscribe to the channel, because the dark is getting closer every night. See you in the next nightmare of On the Streets. This was a soft kill.